Welcome to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. In the words of the great philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who was, of course, an inspiration for the French Revolution. In truth, laws are always useful to those with possessions and harmful to those who have nothing, from which it follows that the social state is advantageous to men only when all possess something and none has too much, end quote. Today, we're going to look at some of the headlines from a very unsocial state. Can revolution be far behind? And when you mention revolution, Stacey, I think you've got to include Russell Brand.
Russell Brand is the revolutionary
He's the man of the revolution. Russell, welcome to the Keiser Report.
I'm very grateful that you had me here on the Keiser Report, your program. Thank you very much, both of you.
Absolutely. Stacey, what is happening? Well, we will respond accordingly.
So after 5 years of a financial crisis and a rising wealth and income gap as a result, we're going to look at some of the headlines that we see happening around the world regarding austerity. Britain pushed 129 billion pounds deeper into the red. This is now 83% of GDP. So despite all of the austerity, we're more in debt.
That's right. So ostensibly, all this austerity was going to reduce debt. However,
has it?
No. It's gone up. So the question is, really, what's this austerity all about? You can't really call it austerity because the debt is increasing. It seems to be more of a wealth transfer.
The national debt has increased because the government has to include all the RBS and Lloyd's debt. The deficit has gone up, surprisingly, because wages have declined. So the income tax has gone down by 1.4%. We're seeing the fact that the top elite, the corporation tax is only 1.5 billion pounds a year. They just don't contribute as much as the bottom 99%.
It's fostering revolution.
Yeah.
And fostering Russell Brand's revolution.
Well, you see, I heard a thing the other day. I'm trying to, you know, like if you go onto a financial program like I'm currently on, I might try and say something financial to join in so that I fit in. Here's that thing now. I heard that the GDP, they've started including drug sales and sex trade sales to make the GDP better. Is that true?
You might have heard it on the Keiser Report.
That's correct.
That doesn't seem right, does it? Is it?
Well, it's about 10 billion pounds worth of activity.
So they include it?
They include heroin addiction, heroin addicts, and...
It's profitable to be a heroin addict. When I was one, I was operating at a loss.
Really?
Yeah, it was, my outgoings were much higher.
Right.
When I was in the heroin addict business, it was shoddy.
Well, they've organized it now with Osborne. He's trying to organize the heroin trade and the prostitution trade,
it's going to be
including the GDP. So
just as I got out of the game got better.
That's right. That's exactly right. Your timing on this couldn't have been worse.
Max, my concern is this. All these things, like, when I was a little kid, I would look at the TV, it says things like NASDAQ, GDP, FTSE, all that, and I looked at it with my innocent childlike mind and said, this is meaningless, this is a meaningless illusion. Then, as I grew up, people went, no, this has got a lot of meaning, you just don't understand it. And then now I've got a little bit older still, it was just meaningless, trickery and skullduggery, and if by their own terminology of austerity and GDP they still can't make the situation any better, then what value does it have and what merit does it have? Is it, as you just said, about the transference of wealth to that elite again? Yeah,
all the terminology, all the language used is meant to obfuscate. It's meant to confuse. The underlying economy...
Obfuscate in itself is quite a confusing word. That's the irony, because it's meant to be, isn't it? They're using that to obfuscate, which means sort of confuse and draw a veil across.
Mendacity of George Osborne and David Cameron could not be more egregious.
I hate them.
But that's very controversial.
No,
but the thing that's real is the austerity, the impact on people, the money they're taking from the very poorest, the disabled, the pensioners. You're seeing money taken from them. And now the mayor has ordered 3 water cannons because the police chief asked him in the event of austerity riots.
Oh, is that what it's for? Because
yeah.
It's going to be an austerity riot.
Right.
So they're anticipating that we have a riot.
That's right.
And they think that 3 water cannons is going to be enough.
That's right.
They're going to need more cannons. You're going to need a bigger cannon, Boris. So that's what they're doing over there. They're over there buying cannons to shoot us with. They go, make us really, really poor, and then shoot us down with water.
That's right. They're already
yeah.
practicing in towns across the UK. They set up dummy towns, and they've got their water cannons, and they're preparing for the riots.
They're preparing for us to riot. Like the
Actually-
Kaiser Chiefs. There was a band called the
Yes.
Kaiser Chiefs, and they said,
I predict a riot. That's right.
Yes, that's true.
They're predicting a riot.
They are anticipating one. They're causing one. They're
They're causing it, they're
exactly
predicting it.
exactly. So
I predict this riot I'm causing.
their prediction will be 100% accurate because they're causing the riot. And we are crowdfunding a people's water cannon. So we want to buy our own water cannon.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, on StartJoint, which is a crowdfunding
I
platform.
endorse that idea,
Oh,
I do.
good. It's
Yeah.
coming soon.
Who will be
we're-
operating it? Us.
Carrie Ann Mendoza, she's raising £30,000 to buy the People's Water Cannon. Whenever Boris uses his cannon, we're going to drench Boris.
And will it be collectivised? And can we each have a turn? 'Cause
Yes,
I'd
for
love a
£10,
go at
you get a
firing
go
that.
on it for £10.
It's actually £500. She has it on offer. Whoever gives £500 first gets to do the first shoot.
Yeah.
Now,
Are we protected by the same laws? If we shoot people with a water cannon, will we not get in trouble?
Russell, this is a revolution. Okay, we don't pay our laws.
No, yeah, there will be
It's
some
not
getting
a
in trouble.
revolution if you're looking at the law book. It doesn't quite
No, I
work.
don't want to
does it?
upset
You're supposed to be
anyone.
rewriting new laws. Isn't that part of the revolution?
I don't upset anybody with the revolution. I just like a quiet, timid, meek revolution, like a little bit of foreskin going under a door.
Fancy your shag, love.
Sorry.
speaking of water, we're all heading towards Detroit now. And this is a shocking story in Detroit. Did you know that 3,000 people per week are being cut off from the water supply because of inability to pay their water bills? Water bills went up by 9% last year. You know there's mass unemployment there, so they're shutting off the water. The UN response on Detroit, disconnecting water from people who cannot pay, an affront to human rights, says UN experts. So they're saying that disconnection for non-payments is only legitimate if the person can truly pay it. But these people are unemployed, poor, and the rates have gone up, and they're just disconnecting them from the water supply, which is a human right.
That seems a bit unreasonable. M&M's from there, he'll be fuming about this.
Well, I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, they're appealing to the United Nations. In other words, the Detroit people are having their water cut off. So here again is an example of austerity in Detroit leading to this humanitarian crisis. And I would imagine this is going to be seen in other places around the world. But in the U.S., you don't associate this. And here in the U.K., people always think of the U.S. as being, not always, but they have a certain idea about it as being full of flower, children, whatever they have, the Wild West,
the
democracy.
shining light,
Meanwhile, in
shining
Detroit,
city.
they're cutting off the water. I mean, as a European, as a British person, how does that hit you? That news.
I've spent some time in America, and I understand that there are many different Americas. I think all of the countries that use the word united in their name are precisely the opposite. Otherwise, why would you need to draw such attention to it? And what I have noticed is that there is that economic apartheid that I've seen you speak about all across America. And I don't think we have... what's a shame is America did create these wonderful ideals, these beautiful cultural apparatus, but it seems obviously now to be at the forefront of a dead idea. Do you feel optimistic, Max and Stacey, that we can bring about change? Because every time I hear one of those stories, they're cutting off water for people in Detroit, and it's like, oh, bloody hell. They're shooting people with water in London. Oh, can't we just give the water that we're shooting people within London to the people in Detroit? Isn't there a solution? Like that. Do you feel despondency and despair, or do you feel a vibrant sense that this is a time for incredible change?
We're joining your revolution. So that's my thought about it.
One of the things I think, though, is that I have to, even though I am quite egotistically driven and self-involved as a product of my time, I recognise that this is a collectivised and lateral process of empowerment for all people, a leaderless revolution, even though I would like at some point to be on a poster.
I'm quite optimistic. I think cryptocurrencies and the fact that we can put society basically on a blockchain and do it ourselves, this is something that has erupted by the people without any sort of permission from authorities. They've just created alternative economic systems, banking systems, beyond the scope of...
Is it like this, Stacey, is an alternative source of information? It's like, oh, right, we've become disenchanted with the mainstream source of information, create our own information, like your programme and my little programme, The Truths, and then similarly we create different economic systems, different social structures.
That's what we've seen on our travels around the world. Cryptocurrencies are really all over the world, and it gives people access to a fair system, their own mining. They're mining the cryptocurrencies. They're creating their own economy around these cryptocurrencies, and this is now challenging the old world order.
Why is it called cryptocurrency? Because that sounds a bit evil.
It's based on cryptography. It's based on cryptography.
What does that mean?
It's code,
Trustless.
essentially, that is
Trustless
used.
communication.
Like a cryptic
You
thing,
don't
so-
need trust. It was originally designed by basically the NSA and CIA and stuff to communicate with somebody, an agent in the field way across the world, and they didn't know for sure if it was their real agent. So it's a
God, it's a lot of mistrust in the CIA and NSA.
well,
Edgy, isn't it?
yeah,
I like
yeah.
to work
But this is
If you are our agent, and you're probably not, you bastard, no one trusts anyone.
Well, no, cryptography is used in credit card transactions, for example. So some very bright fellow named Satoshi Nakamoto, or people posing as Satoshi Nakamoto, figured out that you could use that technology to create a currency, in effect, and reward people to put up their computers to solve these cryptology problems, and that this could, in fact, be a currency in its own right.
And the
That's how
white
it got
paper, when he
started.
announced this, was in response specifically to the UK bailing out the banks. So here we have a system whereby the elite don't get to re-engineer the laws, as Jean-Jacques Rousseau would posit.
Is it based on a resource, these cryptocurrencies? Is there, like, you know, because I think...
Yeah, the
didn't we-
resource is the computer power used. There's thousands of computers harnessed simultaneously solving these very difficult math equations.
So, and how does that generate, and like, I mean, like when it was based on bullion or it was a promise to pay the
Right.
bearer, I understood it back in them days, and the more abstract money becomes, the more abstract these resources become, the more confused I am.
Right. Well, it is similar to gold in that there's a limited number that it will ever be created, 21 million, in the case of Bitcoin, which is the primary cryptocurrency. And they use these vast arrays of computers to solve these, what I call precious numbers. So there's these very difficult numbers that need to be discovered using the software, essentially. And then it's held on the ledger, or the public ledger, of everyone who's involved in this as a copy of every single transaction. So it's completely transparent. No one can rip anybody off because everything is on what's called the public ledger. It's completely transparent, unlike the Bank of England, which will print £1 trillion and really put it into what's called the shadow banking system, and nobody really knows where it goes.
They shouldn't be allowed a shadow banking system.
No, I wouldn't
As soon
think.
as they suggested that, it should go, we're doing a shadow banking system now. Why? We're meant to be legit guys. Now we're doing the Darth Vader cash card scheme. Sounds evil already.
Dark pools, shadow banking system.
Don't trust
But
it.
I think a lot of these peer-to-peer and the cryptocurrencies and the peer-to-peer online stuff and the independent media, this is a response to the social contract has been broken. Bringing it you see what I'm doing, bringing it back to the top of the show. Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, when the social contract is broken, the people must revolt. These are forms of revolt in your more peaceful manner. Max has a more, beheading sort of idea.
Fair enough.
Higgins, Max.
I mean, it's worked in the past. I go with the tried and true. But we've got to cut now to the commercial and then come back into the second half. So stay right there. Don't go away. And we'll see you in a moment.
Move. The
Don't go
headings
away.
are being offered.
All right, I'm Max Keiser. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm here with comedian, writer, actor, activist, Russell Brand. Russell, nice to see you again.
Hello, mate.
Hello. Russell, you were recently speaking to a group of 50,000 right here in central London, and it didn't seem to really get the big media attention that one would think an event like that would get. And a lot of people were complaining about it on Twitter. They're like, BBC, you're not covering this. You're not covering this. Do you agree that they weren't covering it? Are they not covering it? What do you think?
It could be that people don't want to popularise a movement that is overtly anti-establishment and subversive and representative of the majority of people who are currently maligned and neglected. It could be that, or it could be in a way that perhaps marches is now an outmoded piece of activist grammar.
That's a good question. Okay, let me jump in here, because you're saying, because I've been saying this myself, marches and holding placards and things like that seem to be not really effective as they once were. And there are other ways now that people are organizing themselves, obviously with social media, social networking, these types of things. So is that, and there's a huge pushback from the organizers of those systems, in the copyright industry, for example, is trying to push back. But is that where the battleground is going to be going forward, do you think?
We'll always want to see people on the streets, won't we? Because it's exciting and it's about making it a social space. Whose streets? Our streets. Like getting people together. It's exciting. But I think to actually make a difference, to actually make an impact, we have to look at the kind of narratives that are adhesive in the contemporary media and use those narratives. What are the kind of things that are effective? What are the stories that they like telling? It's difficult, really, because in a way they set the lexicon. They decide what language works. They decide which symbols and ideas to promote. And I suppose if we are going to be truly revolutionary, if we're truly trying to create a different system, then we should perhaps reject even their most basic language. But I think perhaps sometimes, at least, that the left feels like it is an entrenched idea, that it is addicted to opposition and actually isn't ready to become powerful, to accept
You talk
power.
talk about symbols. Your recent show, Messiah Complex. It's a show you've been traveling the world with. You, in the promo of the show and in the posters, etc., you have all the major symbols from all these various major religions. And I guess the idea there is to try to put them all in the same poster and just say, you know, it's time to kind of move on from all of these symbols, move on from all of this old way of thinking. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's really good that you've said that, Max, because it enables me to say this thing that I want to say. I believe that all of those symbols are apertures to a different dimension of perception, that really, however you worship God or however you choose to acknowledge your unity with other people, the symbolism ain't what's important. What's important is the concept, and I don't think that at this point in history we should be focusing on our differences, but on our similarities. And I think that the way that we're distracted from our common unity by immigrants or matters of a sexual nature is very divisive and it's unnecessary. I was talking to a cab driver yesterday. That's the sort of thing politicians say, isn't it? I was talking to a plumber yesterday because I'm a normal man with normal things and doing normal stuff with my normal wife. And he goes to me, this cab driver, he said, you know, it's not like I dislike all immigrants, it's just the ones that come over here, use our resources and don't give nothing back to our country. I goes, what you're describing there, mate, is how every corporation in the world behaves. They come over here to our country, they use our resources, our systems that we have built through our common work, then they don't pay no tax or give nothing back. They use the education of our people, they use our roads. So I say, like, if for a while, if for a few years, let's focus our energy on on some relevant opponents near the top of the pyramid, and like those of us that are at the bottom, let's all stay together. People will now go, but you're part of the 1%, Russell. Only because I've managed to get some money from tricking, you know, I don't need it forever.
And as we said in the first half, tricking is now being awarded a GDP status. If you're into sex and drugs, you're actually adding to the economy and not subtracting.
You can be economically useful if you are a heroin-addicted prostitute, we've discovered.
It's really amazing.
Although there may be some negative side effects to that, because sex work, I think, is difficult for people psychologically, and heroin addiction does have some negative side effects.
Well, I want to actually stick on this perception, or the doors of perception, or moving through a portal of perception for a second, because this is actually a common theme in literature, like Aldous Huxley, or even the Doors, you know, from the 60s, the group, the Doors of Perception, it was really where that name of that group came from. And through spiritual ecstasy, there's always this idea of entering into, you know, going beyond a portal into a kind of a state of ecstasy. And as a society, we've been through different periods. I mean, going back to the 60s, people took drugs, obviously. There was the rock and roll, the social movement, the youth movement of that time was getting to a place of a higher consciousness.
Yes.
Here we are in the 21st century, and it seems as though we've lost all ritual. We've lost all ability to come together and seek spiritual commonality.
Yes.
Your show and what you do seems to attempt to bring that back into our lives. Is that message resonating? Is it growing? Is the message growing? Your spiritual message, which is historically a message that has been talked about since the beginning of the dawn of man. Is it growing, or do you find it very difficult to bring that across in this day of artificiality and people on their phones all day long?
We have been conveniently atomized by technology and social structures. But I feel like it isn't my message, but a message, as you said, a prevalent message that has been perennially present. What I feel, mate, is that even the idea of revolution itself is a secular people trying to achieve the idea of transcendence. What is revolution but a flash, a blinding white epiphany of togetherness? Really, I feel that there is, as much as we have an atavistic pang for fairness, like, you know, they do tests on primates, don't they? If they see unfair behaviour, the primates in the lab, they kick off. They probably don't like even being in that lab. They must have realised that's not fair. Well, we have this instinct. We also have an instinct for togetherness and tribalism. And when we're prevented from fulfilling that, when we're kept... At the moment, it's not even that we live in a zoo. We live in a farm. Our consciousness is farmed. We've been turned into little consumer units. But somewhere in our memory, we remember what we're supposed to be. And we're recognising that this system doesn't doesn't work for us, as the brilliant Rousseau quote outlined earlier. And I think we're naturally returning to that. That is going to require a form of revolution. For me, revolution doesn't infer violence. It just means neglect the current system. Don't use this system here that is designed to maintain itself to try to create revolution. That is impossible. That's like trying to use a shoe to make a pancake.
When people are on a spiritual journey, they're just saying the path grows narrower.
Yes, this is true.
In other words, as you get deeper into your spiritual journey, you find yourself really more with yourself, more alone, if you will, with your spiritual goal or spiritual ideals. Is this for you, Russell Brand, obviously someone who can, at the drop of a hat, step on a stage and be incredibly entertaining, a gifted performer? You're now on a path that is very different in many ways. Personally, are you comfortable with this at the moment, or are you a little bit unnerved by the spiritual genie that you've opened up the bottle a bit?
Well, I think, Max, is that we're going to die. So I've now seen what happens if you make money in Hollywood. I've seen what happens if you take loads of drugs. I've seen what happens if you indulge nocturnal activities. It isn't that interesting. I've tried all of them. All that remains is to pursue truth. And there ain't really that much. Like, regardless of what happens, in between 30 and 50 years, I will be dead. So I'm just going to use that to do the most interesting thing I can, to try to participate in the construction of a new ideology. Not a new ideology, just the realisation. These things are already here. Each religion talks of a divine realm that needs to be manifest on the material realm. Everyone's trying to do it, and people that are addicted to individualism and materialism try to prevent it occurring. So just now pick a side, Armageddon's coming.
So we've talked about the mainstream media maybe not covering what you're doing as closely as they should, perhaps. So you're becoming your own media outlet with Trues, which is, I know the theme song, dun 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 dun, which is a very snappy little tune.
Yes, it was done by the Rubber Bandits, an Irish pop rap hip hop duo.
Well, it's
very gifted.
It's very infectious, and
so are they.
It works. I mean, it's getting a lot of huge play. I mean, it gets more views if you can look at that as the guideline to see how popular something is. It gets more than any other media outlet I see out there.
Does it? Oh, good.
I think so.
Good.
So
good.
is this how is the Trues going? And you just decided to do it one day and it started? How did it start?
See my friend there, Gareth. He's there. He's behind the camera. He's filming me now for the Trues. Gareth said, "Let's do the news every day. You like doing that?" I said, "All right then, but don't make it be hard for me, because if something's hard, you know I'll give up." So we made it very effortless, just a spontaneous response to the news. And what, in a way, Max, is like how you know, because you know loads about money markets and that, your education plus your intuition is going to be more viable than the main flow of duplicitous information. So the same with me with news, because I've looked at all them papers all my life, because now I've spent some time waking up different bits of the old brain box. Every time I look at the news or listen to it, I see its absurdity. So for me, it's inherently funny, the whole concept.
I'm a visitor in this country, so I get to observe a little bit the culture. It seems
An English person could be doing that, wearing that waistcoat. That could be an English person.
I'm being assimilated slowly. I have developed a taste for Marmite, if that means
It's all right, isn't it? It means a lot, actually.
The Twiglets, yeah, the Marmite pretzels. Very
You're really
nice.
hooked in, man.
Yeah, that's nice.
You're on the borderlines of becoming an entrenchant British Anglophile.
So I've been, observing the English character as such. It seems that it's tough for people. I mean, maybe this is a gross mischaracterization, but when somebody has a big success, it seems that the public, the English, are kind of like reach out and try to pull them back in a bit. I know that this has been.
Can I play with these?
Yeah, please do. Is this an unfair characterization? But it seems like.
English people aren't like that. That's the English media. English people are all right. They won't let you get too mouthy. You mug, shut it, like that. That's all right. But everyone in England, English people are cool. This is a cool country. These people we're cool. But people don't like you getting too flash. I maybe got a bit too flash. People bring you down again if you stay in touch with your normal mates. Also, that success, I think people are very suspicious of that kind of materialistic, flashy affluence. Because I tell you why, sense of humour. That's the defining English or British attribute, sense of humour. People just want to take the piss and laugh at each other. So if you start taking yourself seriously, you're in trouble in this country. Yeah,
but you have managed to kind of break through to a global audience, which has got to be key. Is the show still playing? Messiah Complex? Is it still?
I've stopped doing that now. I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book about revolution. It's called Revolution. I switched some of the words around, like a bit of graffiti that I saw. And it's about, can you change yourself personally, and will that change be reflected in social change? Are spiritual principles relevant to social change? Is there a way we can stop it all feeling so earnest and sincere? Can we just have a laugh? Can we collectivise? Can we put power back to where it should be with us, the people? I don't want to spoil the surprise, but the answer is yes.
All right, we have about 30 seconds left. So in the closing seconds, you know, I recently saw you on the Jeremy Paxman show on Newsnight. The word revolution is kind of a hot button, but yours is sticking really to the spiritual of love, pretty much is the best.
Starts from there, but they're the ones buying water cannons. We're not buying water cannons. We're not the ones being aggressive. We're not the ones buying rubber bullets. The revolution is coming. Is coming.
All right, Russell Brand, thanks so much for being on the Kaiser Report.
I like it here.
Drop by anytime.
You're American. Do you want to buy that bridge? It's mine. I've had it ages. I can sell you that bridge. That's mine. Belongs to me, that does. Rebuild it in your garden.
Will you take Bitcoin?
Yes, we do, I think.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Kaiser Report. Me, Max Kaiser, and Stacey Herbert, or I guess Russell Brand. If you want to contact us, tweet us on Twitter. Until next time, bye, y'all.
I'm on Twitter.